In the beginning, there was no beginning. Only a void, a silent, star-strewn darkness waiting for a spark. And then, a cataclysm. A violent, chaotic dance of dust and gas, drawn together by an unseen force we would one day call gravity. This was not a gentle creation. It was a cosmic forge, a maelstrom of collisions and celestial fury. Out of this crucible, a new world was hammered into existence. A sphere of molten rock and superheated metal, glowing with the intensity of 1,000 suns. This was Earth, but it was not the Earth we know. This was a world of fire. Welcome to the Age of Fire. Before the sky was blue, before the oceans teemed with life, before the first blade of grass reached for the sun, there was only fury. Our planet, in its infancy, was a hellscape, a terrifying, yet magnificent spectacle of raw and tamed power. The surface was a roiling sea of lava, a liquid inferno stretching to every horizon. Volcanoes, not as mountains but as wounds in the planet's crust, erupted without cease. They spewed fountains of liquid rock hundreds of miles into the thin, toxic air, painting the perpetual twilight with shades of incandescent red and burning orange. The sky, if you could call it that, was a suffocating blanket of ash and poisonous gases, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, water vapor, and sulfur compounds choked the atmosphere, trapping the immense heat below. There was no sun to see, only a dim, diffused glow piercing through the thick, swirling clouds of soot and dust. This was a world under siege, not just from within, but from without. The early solar system was a cosmic shooting gallery, and Earth was a prime target. Asteroids and comets, remnants from the formation of the planets, rained down in a constant, brutal bombardment. Each impact was an explosion of unimaginable scale, gouging out massive craters and vaporizing rock, sending shockwaves rippling across the molten globe. These messengers from deep space, however, were not just agents of destruction, they were also bearers of gifts, locked within the ice of comets, and the minerals of asteroids were the essential ingredients for the future, water and complex organic molecules. Each fiery collision was another delivery, another seed of potential being sown into the scorched and barren soil of our nascent world. For millions of years, this inferno raged. The planet was a prisoner of its own heat. But even the most relentless fire cannot burn forever. Slowly, imperceptibly, a change began. As the heavy bombardment from space lessened, the planet's core began to differentiate. Heavier elements like iron and nickel sank toward the center, forming a dense, metallic core. This process generated a powerful magnetic field, a guardian that wrapped around our world. This invisible shield, our magnetosphere, began to deflect the harshest solar winds, protecting the fragile, developing atmosphere from being stripped away into space. With this newfound protection, the atmosphere could begin to mature. The ceaseless volcanic eruptions continued to pump gases into the air, but now they had a chance to stay. The planet's surface, while still blisteringly hot, started to cool. A delicate crust began to form over the molten seas, like a thin layer of ice on a winter lake. It was a fragile and stable shell, constantly being fractured and remelted by the magma bubbling just beneath. But it was a start. It was the first solid ground on Earth, and then, a miracle. High in the upper atmosphere, where temperatures were finally cool enough, the vast quantities of water vapor began to condense. For the first time, clouds formed, not the wispy, white clouds of a summer sky, but thick, heavy, dark storm clouds that blanketed the entire planet. The pressure built. The atmosphere grew heavy with its inched tears. And then, the first drop fell, followed by another, and another. A drizzle turned into a downpour. A downpour into a deluge. It began to rain. This was no gentle spring shower. It was a torrent of biblical proportions, a global storm that would last for thousands, perhaps millions of years. The water that fell was boiling hot, striking the still hot crust and instantly flashing back into steam, only to rise, cool, and fall again. It was a relentless cycle of evaporation and precipitation. The fire gave birth to breath, and the breath gave birth to the storm. This great, planet-spanning deluge was the ultimate coolant. It washed the soot and ash from the sky, slowly thinning the thick atmospheric haze. It fell upon the jagged, volcanic landscapes, carving rivers and channels into the newly hardened rock. The water pooled in the vast, shallow basins and impact craters, forming the first lakes and shallow seas. At first, they were boiling, acidic cauldrons, but with every drop of rain, they grew deeper, wider, and cooler. The age of unceasing fire was ending. Drowned by an age of unrelenting water, the chaos began to yield to a semblance of calm. The violent symphony of explosions and eruptions softened into the steady rhythm of the rain and the lapping of waves against volcanic shores. The sky, once a murky ceiling of red and gray, began to clear, for the first time in an eternity. The faint light of the distant sun touched the surface of the water. Beneath these primordial waves, in the darkness of the deep-sea vents or the shallows of a volcanic pool, the stage was set. The raw ingredients delivered by comets and forged in the Earth's own chemistry swirled in a warm, mineral-rich soup. The energy was there. The elements were there. All that was needed was a spark. A moment of impossible chemistry. A single, self-replicating molecule. In the heart of these newly formed oceans, stirring in the planet's boiling cradle, the first, tentative pulse of life was about to begin. The age of fire was over. Its legacy was a world washed clean, poised on the brink of a new, blue dawn. Next, the age of oceans. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey back to the very beginning. If you were captivated by the story of our planet's fiery birth, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you won't miss the next chapter in our epic history. We'll see you in the next age.